Okay, there we go. So the power of story is wicked important, and I'm going to tell you why. We're used to hearing it all the time. Truth matters, but it's not always that important. People will believe a certain story that gets fed out to them. I personally think that truthful stories are much better. They're much more meaningful. But I'll show you exactly what I mean and how you could start to incorporate this into your sales. Again, this is not going to be a meeting that's going to focus the same way on AI, how to make a prompt, how to do make a photograph or a video. This is going to talk about what your own experience has been and how you're going to be able to tie it. And here's the model. You could write this down if you want. I'll say this a couple of times. It's a story, it's a bridge. From the story and the bridge comes the pitch and your outcome. Story, bridge, pitch, outcome. We're going to go through that many times. So if you missed that, don't worry. We're going to get that. First of all, the story. Let me start with a visual here. And I want everyone to tell me what they think the story is. Here we go. Does anybody want to have a guess at that story? You can unmute and just shout it out.
A family on vacation.
Okay,
September 11th story.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Eitan saw the September 11th. Andy just saw the family. Andy, do you see the World Trade behind?
I do.
Did you initially see it?
I actually did not. I was just focusing on the three of them. So
okay,
that's an obvious one. So sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's me, actually, if you want to know the truth. And that's my 24-year-old who's on my shoulders. Of course, she was smaller then.
Wow.
And that's my wife. And that happened, just to tell you the story here, this happened 10 days. This happened on September 1st or 2nd, I believe it was the 1st, 2001. This was just before the attack on the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. And it's an image that's had a profound impact on me. I put this on my Facebook and social media every year. And it's really gotten me, at least from a conversational standpoint. Again, you could choose to go for it or not. But I'm saying from a conversational standpoint, this always spurs conversation about where were you, what was going on, what was happening. For those that think the conversation actually runs dry or dead, this is something that it's almost like the weather. Everybody could relate to what happened. And obviously I chose to put this up because it is 23 years ago today. That little baby is now 24 and living in California. And that's all part of the story, the visual image. Let me stop this for a second. Again, a lot of people have that story. Where were you when? What happened when? What's going on how? So there, you saw the story part. The story was the young family in front of the World Trade. Andy's such a nice person. Look at the family. It's so cute, to me, it was a bit of an emotional one. That was the first day, 9/11, 10 days later when that happened. The first day as we were fleeing, there was some false reports that the planes had some type of chemical agent in there. So I said, hey, fuck that. I'm going to go to my good friend David Toppenfeld's, who lived in Bergen County, New Jersey. Any of my New Yorkers here? A couple New Yorkers, maybe? Okay, so we drove up 9W and got to Bergen County, New Jersey. David at the time was diagnosed with an illness, which ultimately he died from. But that was the moment that happened in that day. Now, what is it? I'm not asking you to go pimp out a national tragedy to help you in your business. What I am saying is most people say that they find me a little bit more relatable when they actually hear that story. And I like to lead off this presentation with that story. And let's get to something else about David Toppenfeld. Okay, David was the best man at my wedding. Okay, here's the second story, guys. So just make note of this. Best man at my wedding. Okay, Eitan, I get it. Eitan was the best man at Eitan's wedding, although that marriage didn't last as long. So, David Toppenfeld was the most remarkable man ever. Regrettably, he died way too young at 38 with a brain tumor. It's something that I think about all day, all the time. So does Eitan. That's one of the reasons that we're really good friends, is that he was the third guy here. But David Tobenfeld came to me. Okay, so let me give you this, and it's a good real estate story here. So this was stoned, fat, 22-year-old Ed, okay? Not the svelte, really handsome 56-year-old Ed, you know, but this was the stoned, fat, 22-year-old Ed living in Manhattan at the time. David Tobenfeld, wonderful man, had an apartment. Eitan, where was it? 93rd or 92nd in Madison. I think it was 92nd in Madison. Am I close?
Yes,
Somewhere thereabouts.
91st
Okay.
in Madison, maybe.
91st, 92nd in Madison. So for my New Yorkers here, you know that there's a value to that area, and there's a reason for the story. Okay, the landlord was a bastard. It was a 3-story walk-up with 6 or 7 units and 2 storefronts. The units were 1-bedrooms and studio apartments. I told you this was going to be a real estate story. And David comes to me. There was no heat. Eitan, nod wildly if you agree with me. There was no heat in his apartment, no hot water. He had to go over to the Y to take a shower every day. It was he stopped paying rent, and our fraternity brothers broke the locks in some of the other units and started squatting in the building. Okay. So what happens now? David comes to me and he says, look, Ed, I heard the landlord's broke. You think we could get your old man to put up $50,000? They want $250,000 for the building. For the building. 92nd and Madison. Okay, good. Paula, that's the face. And what does stoned, fat, 22-year-old Ed say at that point? Okay, and I'm going to give it to you really good here. Okay, this is almost, I'm going to paraphrase, but this was stoned, fat Ed. Are you out of your fucking mind? There's a homeless guy sleeping downstairs. You have to pay him $20 every week so he doesn't mug you. There's a drug dealer outside faking to be in a wheelchair. You have no heat. You have no hot water. What are you crazy? This is terrible. Now, anybody want to have a guess what that building sold for about 5 years ago?
10 million.
Very close, but you're still off. It was about $13 million. 2 storefronts, 6 or 7 units, studios, and 1 bedrooms. To my defense, stoned, fat, 22-year-old Ed is not svelte, handsome, well-together, learned 56-year-old Ed. But it does tell a very, very good story. And I oftentimes lead into that when I'm working with clients. Now, guys, this does take certain life experiences. And by the way, both of these stories are absolutely true. Whether you're in real estate or any type of persuasive business, you want to be able to get to people to actually relate to them. Now, Paula was just jumping up and down for a second there because she's like, oh my God, I know what that's worth.
Yeah.
I know what that actually means. I know what
lost opportunity. What are you going to do? We all have them, right?
Of course we do. Of course we do. And the foolishness to be able to say that that person at 22 is the same person that they are today. I would have made the same decision today as I would have, because I wouldn't have known. You can't, you can only look back and you can only say all that stuff. Now, here's the thing. In the process of getting that story in, especially if I lived in New York still, I could get into the neighborhood changes. What's gone on in the neighborhood, why that neighborhood has actually escalated, if I was in a listing appointment right there, wouldn't that be a great story to tell at that moment? Yeah. Wouldn't that be a great thing when somebody's actually wondering what the value is of their home? That's the kind of thing that I want to tell you. There's other foolish stories here. Let me give you one more, and then we're going to get to your stories. Okay, go ahead. Terry's all excited here. Go ahead, Terry.
I want you to name that story, the 92nd Street. Why?
Very funny. So for those, Eitan's laughing, and there's a YWYMHA on 92nd Street in Manhattan. And so they call it the 92nd Street Y, like the letter Y. So Terry, you made a joke. Good for you.
The coffee.
Good for you, Terry. I really like that. Again, story matters. Here's something a little gross, but I'll get the story out anyway. And I do this when I'm actually speaking with different clients who are dealing with different buyers. Had a buyer go into a property, lockbox property, not a typical thing that I'm going to show. Says, is there a restroom I could use? Okay, sure, go ahead. Clogs the toilet. Clogs the toilet. Oh my God. Okay, and Randy's nodding. I think that might have happened, something like that. We have these things happen to us. it tells the story. It's something that's able to bridge the gap and makes you a little bit more human. Here's the reason why I think this topic is so important. Even though we're at 18 people here, we oftentimes have 70, 75 people in this meeting. It's not fun and snuggly and with little shiny things with the AI, which I'm going to do on Friday as well. We're going to talk about that next meeting. But what we get from this is a real practical approach. Story. I told you about Chloe and my wife and I in front of the World Trade. I told you about David Taubenfeld and that $250,000 building that I thought was a stupid purchase. And I told you about the client clogging up a toilet. What are some of your stories? How do we actually build that bridge? Go ahead, Paula. Paula, I'm glad you're so engaged.
Yeah. So, 2 years ago, I had a listing that was a great opportunity, big house. It was something very unusual for the neighborhood. Long story short, I got an offer right away. And
Okay.
the owner kept telling me, try to get more, try to get more, try to get more. Everybody has a tipping point, right? Like that book, The
Sure.
Tipping Point. So the buyer just maxed out at whatever it was. And then he ghosted me. He would not answer me anymore.
The buyer wouldn't answer. The buyer
wouldn't
stopped.
answer me. Right. So the
Okay.
seller kept saying get more. And for that extra $10,000 on a $1,550,000 deal, he wound up selling it for $1,550,000 asking price. He wound up selling it for $1,260,000. So
Sure.
he lost so much money because he just pushed it a little too much. And the worst part of the whole story, like your friend that passed away, he recently died beginning of this year. It was only about a year and a half that he was around to enjoy this money from his mother's home. So he didn't even get to enjoy that money. I was like, you pushed me for an extra it's like, it was so little money. Just grab the deal and cash offer. I mean, all the best. And it was gone. So every time we see somebody, we go into a listing appointment and they say, oh, this is the number that we want. And we always try to repeat that story because it's a very good learning example for a seller to be able to say, there's always a tipping point for someone, or in negotiations, we use it.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought it up. All of us have this stuff. I could tell you about the time that someone pulled a gun on me when I was out with a client. Talk about a way to get the client to not want to buy in that neighborhood. It worked. He didn't want to buy in the neighborhood. I could tell you about walking in on a home invasion in Miami. That wasn't fun either. I mean, again, those are the two kind of worst. It wasn't worse because I didn't get shot. Nothing really bad happened in both scenarios, but it scared the living daylights out of me. I work with women. I'm glad that it was me and not some of the women that I work with. They would never go back to the business again. I know the women that work with me. They would never go back again. They would look at that and realtor safety. Again, if you want to sell something, paint a story. If you want to be able to communicate a point, paint a story. You've got to be able to do that. Now, a lot of you will say, but Ed, I don't have the conversation. How do I get in the conversation in the first place? It's another mastermind. I'm going to make the assumption that you have that engagement with whoever you might want to do. Now, on here, she wasn't thinking I was going to pick on her at all, but we got Kate. Can I pick on you, or I don't?
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Okay, bring it on. So this is an organization that is kind of near and dear to my heart. Kate, you just want to tell everyone who you are and what you do, briefly.
Hi, everyone. So this is fun. I was thinking of a horror story that I had, but it was regarding fundraising. So I work for Birthright Israel Foundation, an organization that sends young Jewish adults to Israel, an immersive Israel experience. And I was thinking my worst solicitation story was I made an ask for a gift and the donor said no. I told my story, the impact, how we're changing young adults' lives, like, Ed's children. And he told me the number and I said, you can afford to do more. And he basically said, get the F out of my office. And who are you to tell me what you can and cannot afford? And from then on, it was like, all right, Kate, like, calm down. Don't feel that I don't know if that's the story you were looking for, Ed, but
no. But I think it wasn't. But I think it's important because it shows how the wrong story could do just as much bad. What you communicated at that point was you were looking. He felt that he was being looked at as dollars that could be manipulated. Right? Am I close?
To 100%.
Yeah.
And it was not authentic. And I think about that all the time when I'm going into a solicitation, that I'm not in this guy's or woman's check and banking account. And who am I to assume what they can and cannot afford? So it checked me.
Sure. And so it's the type of thing. Now, I will tell you this. I like the fact that you came today. Again, for those of you who most of you know, most of you can tell just by looking at me that I'm Jewish. But my daughter went on Birthright last summer, prior to starting her life in California. Birthright's a wonderful organization to send the kids over there. They absorb the cost. It's, what is it, $5,000 a kid. And this is regardless of whether they have money or not. Nobody pays anything. It doesn't matter whether they're an affluent family or a poor family. This is their objective, is to get the kids to go here. So obviously this takes a lot of money. They need to be able to do the fundraising. However, they're masterful at telling the stories. They're masterful at being able to go back and talk about what that particular experience did. And guess what? It sells. Again, I don't want to get into a debate about what needs to be fundraised or what doesn't need to be fundraised. This is a passion of mine, unapologetically Jewish. You're welcome. But what I will say here
Thank you, Ed.
is, thank you. But I will say here is that it's a very, very good example of, you know, how a bad story made someone, my guess is the man was pretty wealthy that closed his checkbook.
He never saw me again. Yeah, I really fucked that one up. Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? The story might not end at that point. We don't know if
We
another
don't know.
person, you know, that's the other thing. A lot of you will say, well, I blew that deal. I'm like, okay, then you've got nothing to lose.
Right.
How about that? You got nothing to lose. If people insult me all day, every day. I'm in sales. That's what happens. I don't make it a symptom of a disease. I honestly believe that when you're looking at someone's best interest, I had someone say to me, well, they want to use Zillow instead of a buyer's broker. They did. They went under contract in a property in Delray Beach. It was right next to a sober house. Bless those people who are living in the sober house who want to get sober. I've got many people who are part of a friend of Bill's, they say, in the Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've got many friends who are that way. They have done phenomenal things with their lives going there. But you know what? It doesn't mean that you want your property living next to a sober house.
Right.
Now, there's fair housing law in different areas, and some people say that you're not able to do it. If you are a broker with the compassion and working with someone who truly knows their area, it will be up to you to decide whether you're going to disclose that, what I would consider fairly important factor, and it's something that Zillow will not be able to do. Now, how is that for persuasion in convincing the value of a broker? You may have liked it, you may not have, but that is something for you to consider. The problem with the industry and the problem with many of you, unfortunately, is you don't have enough of value of yourself. You're not looking at this as something that this is a trained profession. It is a craft, just like an artist, just like a lawyer that spends years and years getting better at this. This is a craft. You're coming here to get better. You're coming here to learn and to get more and to realize that constant and never-ending improvement is going on each and every single day. Paul, you've been trying to politely get a word in.
Yeah,
please.
my just one word. My favorite word in this business is next.
Next.
You know, you just have to shrug it off, brush it off, and move on. Next.
Sure.
It's a numbers game.
Or you could take the next thing with regard to Kate and that unfortunate incident. She'll never do that again.
Right. Learning
She'll
experience.
never, ever do that again. Same thing with David Tavenfeld when we were roommates in college. Last story on David here. Just a wonderful guy. I wish all of you knew him. I adored him. And so did Eitan. We think about him every day, all day. He's a wonderful man. But we had a situation where he was moving out of our apartment. We were roommates in college. And he got all the, he was leaving first. And he said to me, okay, you can take care of the emptying of the apartment of all the stuff. Again, I was even younger. I was stoned, fat 21-year-old Ed. What the hell did I know? Okay. What happened? The day the lease ended, our crazy landlord came over going nuts on me. Why isn't this stuff out of the house? Why is it? I never organized it. I never took care of anything. I didn't know. I was just a kid. I didn't do anything. And at the same time, I do have a bad habit of taking responsibility for everything. I could have just left all that crap. It was garbage furniture. Like, used IKEA would have been generous. Okay, this was a couple of years of beer and weed and crap being spilled all over the sofas. This was not something that anyone wanted. This is something that was really like, it just needed a dumpster. So, you know, knowing what I know now about real estate, I could have just said, screw you, packed a bag and walked out. But no, I flipped out. I had my first major panic attack. I don't know why. I mean, I looked at all of that and it was a major, major panic attack. But what did I learn from that experience? Just as Kate learned from her experience with her client, I became organized. It was a painful lesson, but I became extremely organized, and I credit that horrible experience. In my mind, it was built up to be something so bad. I credit that with actually making me a better business person today. So I throw that out. Let's get some other stories from you guys, and we're going to get to some fun little tricks and of the trade as well here. Okay, is that Terry? You're kind of, I can't tell.
Yeah, no. Okay, as you know, Edmund, I do like to champion emerging neighborhoods. Bedford-Stuyvesant is now the hottest neighborhood in all of New York City, but back in the day, not so much. So I had these husband and wife. They were both architects. They wanted to champion emerging neighborhoods, and they wanted to see a few houses in this neighborhood. So I was relatively new. I didn't realize that if you didn't know an agent and the listing agent, and they just give you the keys, that might be a red flag. I just like, cool, I don't have to deal with an extra person at this showing. So we walk up the stoop, we unlock the door, we walk into the living room where there was a chalk outline of a dead body. How do you spin one? You know, at least there's no body.
Yeah, that's an optimist. I like that. Was there the police line as well? I mean, or was it a joke, or was it a real?
No, I should have brought some sage to burn it. The house was empty except for that, and it was, in most ways, it was perfect for what this couple wanted to do. But we looked at the rest of the house, but they never called me back after that. So
okay. Well, so stories work for the pros and the cons. But here's the thing: the advertisers know the stories work. The influencers know the stories work. We just watched a debate last night. At least I did. I fell asleep, but still, I fall asleep all the time. But you will buy into whatever story, you know, you've got a particular leaning, you got a particular belief. It's used. Greta Thunberg, how dare you? How dare you ruin the world for me? I personally think that they really overused this little girl. I think that it's a fairly good message to have a clean environment. I think that the blame went in largely a wrong direction with this one, but it worked. It worked. They mission accomplished. The people who had the passion for that used that story. You guys need to start to think about stories. It's something that I really can't create for you. I'd gladly talk to any of you if you think you've got one. And certainly some people are better than others. Now, it might not be fair. I do a lot of public speaking, and I'm fairly good at this. And some of you also do. But there are ways that you could actually get that. You got to first get relatable. Remember, story, bridge, pitch, and the designed outcome. The story is whatever we just told about David, about this little girl, about whatever it might be. The bridge is to make that connected with something that you want to connect to. This is going to be something that if you're in a listing appointment, your objective is to get the listing, is to be able to get them to give you the listing, to be able to do that. So you're making that transition. Again, we'll go into transition in one more moment. The pitch. Why is the Edmund Bogen team at Douglas Elliman Real Estate more than qualified to be able to do the job? Well, if we can't answer that question, we got to get back to the basics. Sometimes we fumble. Sometimes you flub it up. Sometimes you say a story that will get someone really upset. You know, at St. Andrew's Country Club, where I live, there's a problem with feral cats. I happen to love animals, and there's one cat that's named Shadow. It's a black cat that's in front of the gym, and I always stop and pet the cat. Now, some guy said, okay, there's Ed, the crazy cat guy. Okay, he filled in the story for me. I got to correct that. You got to correct the innuendo. people will then make those certain assumptions. And here's the thing, maybe I am the crazy cat guy. Maybe I'm sitting next to a golden doodle. Maybe I'm the crazy golden doodle guy. It doesn't really matter. You are what you actually put. I mean, everyone says that truth matters. It does, to the extent that you could go to jail, to the extent that you could get yourself in trouble, to the extent that you're not going to want to break a rule. But the truth, what are we seeing that's truth? What are we seeing that's truth? You've got to actually decide what lies you want to believe and what stuff you're actually going to buy into. We're seeing it all day, every day. Use it for your stories and for your business. Okay, who's got a couple things that they want to share? And then I might have a couple tricks or tools that I could share with you, because everybody loves the little tricks and tools that we bring about here. Who's got a story, situation? Who's got a situation that they think they need to make a story for? Anyone? Anyone? Ferris Bueller? David? Ali? Tally? Okay. Oh, Kenny! Look at this, Kenny. Hey, Kenny.
I've been around for a long time. There's a lot of stories. There's stories with every house, and some of the agents here, even at Element, have taken those stories and laminated the story with the photo of the property and keep those in your file for your listing presentation of which story you're going to use. I mean, I've had something. My first residential sale was in 1988. And I sold a house in Venice for $250,000. Today, the house is worth $5 million.
Sure.
And, if people just tell the story about, prices, the value of a home because of inflation or whatever you call it, doubles every 10 years. The average interest improvement on a house every year is 5%. If you start doing the math on that with compound interest, to get the people to buy today. I've got a guy who's worried about the rates right now because they're so high. I'm like, buy today, we'll refinance in a year. So we got him in
Thank
one
you.
place. You get the price.
Hold on. Say that again a little slower.
Okay.
Buy now, and we can
buy now, and we could refinance in a year or two. Because you'll get the price low, and then when the rates come down, you could. You can control the buy down on the rates or buy them down now. But that's the big fear right now. People are waiting. And if the rate prices go up 5 or 10%, if the rates go down, prices are going up. It's a teeter totter. So if you could grab it at a price, we just got somebody into one, 25,000. I mean, took a couple of weeks. The seller was a builder and didn't want to move his price, but finally realized he's got to get out of it. And got him into a good deal.
Kenny, you hit the nail on the head with the story here. Now, all of you should have this story. Listen to this very carefully now. That's probably the most important part of the meeting. When it comes to people that give you the interest rate question, if anybody ever says that they're concerned about this, use this story. And the story goes like this, that right now you're going to buy the house. If interest rates come down, there's going to be a lot of buyers that are going to come in, and the price is going to go up. So now, if you actually buy it, the prices come down, you're going to be able to refinance. Real estate is one of the few investments that I could name where you really, truly have that advantage. That paying too much is really relative to a short moment in time. There was a property here down the street that the guy couldn't sell it for 2.6 6 months ago. It's now under contract at 2.65. He took it off the market, put back on. Things change. Moments of time actually changes. But the one thing that's really consistent, if you could get a good interest rate story for somebody who's on the fence about buying for that reason. And here's the thing, one thing, that story is absolutely true. Damn it, it really is. If rates come down, they could refinance. If rates come down, the price is going up. Okay, go tell everyone who you are and where you are.
Hi, Edmund, how are you?
Hey.
Hi, I have a question in regards to refinancing. Now, if they refinance, do they get all the charges all over again? Or, because I don't think they do, but do they get charged all the way, all over for like points or refinancing?
There certainly are some finance charges that come in to that, but I think that it really depends upon who your lender is. This is not do I have a mortgage broker here today? Anyone? Okay, I don't want to go beyond what the focus is of this meeting. We could certainly catch up about it after. But yes, there are some expenses that do carry on with a refinance. There are certain closing costs that do exist. It doesn't have to be a killer.
That's what I'm saying. It could cost them thousands of dollars to refinance.
It could, but it also largely depends upon the lender and it largely depends upon what's going on. A tiny movement in the interest rates probably wouldn't want to refinance. But on the other hand, that probably didn't move the needle that much on the value of the home. We're actually talking about home values at this point. So I think it's really important that all of you actually understand what this means. Now, we've got a candidate who's saying to everyone, we're going to give every new home buyer, first-time home buyer, $25,000 for their down payment. Okay, that sounds great. It's certainly a very good story, a very, very good narrative. Let's take a look at what that actually means. Any idea how many first-time home buyers there are going to be in that time frame? How many first-time home buyers would that bring about? Okay, some estimate that it could be over $100 billion cost to this economy. Well, let's go a step further. Anybody been in the business long enough to know 2008 and what actually happened around then? Some of you do remember that. It's because people couldn't afford homes. That's where it started. It started with the subprime market, went on to other people because it was a feeding frenzy, free for all. That statement feels a lot like this. Doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a program for the poor or the new people getting in. I've got a daughter that at some point will want to get equity. My nephew bought his first apartment. There's home ownership is a wonderful thing. But to me, that was a story that was crafted that got you to think about that particular political party. Again, I'm saying too much. I get it. All of you could come up with your own stories about, I could give you stories on the other one, talk about a story about somebody else who claimed that there was 11,000 votes that didn't exist. Okay, there. So now we can have both sides. I'm not going to be partisan here. Kenny, go ahead.
I was going to say, with this lenders thing, I mean, talk to your lender, have them do the math of what the interest rate is today, what the cost would be to refinance in a year or two, and what the difference will be, and how much they will save in that mortgage over 30 years or 10 years. I mean, it's going to be a little upfront cost, but in the long run, they'll be kicking it, and the appreciation of the property is going to double. So you're winning in several ways. It's the one thing with real estate: you get to depreciate it, you get to write it off. You get
on the commercial end, you get to depreciate it. I think it's important that everyone. Okay, so let's not. Yes, you're right. If you've got for residential ownership, it's still 27.5 years for residential apartments. That's what you're. Okay, we could do a whole thing. We could go total geek math out on you guys at some point if you want. I like doing that, but of course, I'm a bit of a nerd. Lisa Murray from Scottsdale, Arizona. Why don't you, and who do you got there with you? Tell us a story about that. You got to unmute yourself, Lisa. Oops.
Sorry.
No worries.
That was little Ozzy Osbourne. You jogged my memory when you brought up the 08, 09 era. My very first short sale was with, the seller was a lender who I knew from Chamber of Commerce, Sphere, whatnot. He wanted to price his home at $1,075,000. I think I wanted to price it starting with a 9. Let's say that. He had a strategy though. He was going to reduce it every 2 weeks, 25,000 or whatever it was. So back then I kind of just didn't have the gumption to tell him he was making a mistake. And he wound up making a huge mistake. And with all those price reductions, chasing the market down, he wound up selling for, I think, just under 900. Whereas if he would have priced it where I suggested in the beginning, he would have done far better.
And you'll never get credit for being right.
No,
never.
And I don't care, but it's a great story for.
It's a great story.
Chasing the market down and overpricing, how it doesn't really net you anything more in the end. You lose.
Sure. Again, stories are persuading. Stories will either make or break you. I'm so glad Kate was brave enough to say where it broke her in that particular moment. But on the other hand, she bounced back up, just as I, dealing with my crazy landlord, will never make that mistake again. There are values to the errors that we make in life. There are values to this. Okay, any other story that we got? Because there's one cool AI trick that I want to show
really
people.
quick. I'm not going to go into the story, but the best thing to do is take those stories about how difficult the transaction was and put that down and show somebody your skills by that. I mean, I had some crazy ones recently. I had a client that was broke, going to lose the house to taxes. Her husband left. She had another mortgage, an autistic kid. I had to get $100,000 hard money loan. There was no insurance on the house. I had to go to the Russian mafia to get an insurance policy on this thing. It was an
Okay,
architect.
but disclaimer, I
You know,
would
it
never
just got
suggest
really,
that
it
you
was
do that,
difficult.
but
But if
okay,
you could
yeah.
show your skills by being able to solve problems, it goes very far.
Yeah, it truly, truly does. Here's the other trick. If you know, and here's a question. We're getting a little nefarious here, but I'll take the rest. Why was Bernie Madoff successful in his scam? Why was he successful in his scam? He's evidence the product doesn't need to work. Okay, the product was not a real product. It never worked, but it worked for him for 20 years or more. So, you know, why was he so persuasive? What was it about him? He used, say that, Livette, please.
Credibility.
Credibility. And where did he get it from?
His
His
peers.
Clients.
Clients. I know a guy who's played golf with him, you know, many, many years ago, and he's an up-and-coming real estate investor, and they were talking about the fund, and he said, yeah, my fund's closed right now. I can't take any more investors. That's what Bernie Madoff said to my friend. And my friend was like, well, you know, you can't open it up. You can't get me into this thing. No, can't do it. Wouldn't even return the guy's call. That son of a bitch. How come he didn't get me into his fund? Why wasn't I allowed to do this? It's that type of thing spreads like wildfire. It's using other people to get the credibility beyond that. That's why referral means so much money to you guys. You know, if Kate tells everyone, hey, I know a guy named Ed, he's a really nice guy, seems to know what the hell he's doing, honorable, works really hard, you really ought to meet him if you want to buy or sell a place. That is everything. Let me make that 100% clear. That is everything. We all have those stories. And I think it's really important. Livette, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, anybody want to see a little AI magic here or what? Maybe, kind of, sort of? Okay, let's go on with just a quick little thing here. This is something, I don't know if we really talked about it much. This is runway.ml. Daniel, if you could just get that URL ready for people to see. And with it, we could actually take a image. Here, let me just do something really quick. You know what? I'm gonna do a screenshot. Here, I did a screenshot of myself. Not a very good screenshot, but let's take a look here. So runway.ml. I showed everyone that image of my wife and Chloe and I in front of the World Trade. And I said to myself, for this meeting, is there a way that I might be able to animate that picture? And
wow.
what that did was it brought a little bit of life to it. I didn't like that one, so I made another one. Now it added some boy to the image. I don't know where this kid came from. And then one arm goes down and these other arms come up out of nowhere. So we could see that the AI made some major errors there. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, that's probably pretty close. Again, not us if you've seen us. And depending upon how quickly you use the image, it could be something that you're actually going to utilize. So let me just show you quickly how easy that was. Again, runway.ml. I'm going to take an image. Ah, look at that handsome devil. So great. I got this image here, and I'm going to say, man starts to laugh. And I'm going to actually generate that image. I put it at high speed just for the sake of getting through the meeting. So it actually takes the image that you have and it will create a video out of that image. Let's just see. It's coming up in just 1 second. And it may or may not be good, guys. And that's my little disclaimer to all of you right now. The technology is still new. There's still a failure point, but I'm going to show you how I incorporate this into my business and how you can too. Okay, it's going to be just another second. Really exciting. I know you're excited. Hold on 1 second. Here we go. Generation error, of course. the volume of errors that happen when I'm in a presentation really sucks. So let's just take a look at something that I actually made before. This was an image that I made when I had long hair. I don't know why I was actually, let's see another one. So there, this is me back when I had long hair. It was just a still image, and I was able to actually animate that image. Again, this is just goofing around, but let me show you now something. You know, I'll pull this up while this is down. It'll be a little bit faster. This was a video that was actually made entirely with AI, and I'm going to turn. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so take a look at this. What you're about to see was entirely made with AI using partially that tool, partially some others, but we're going to go through a couple of workshops on how you could use this. Here we go. Keep in mind, the person speaking is not me. It's an avatar of me. The voice is not mine. It is a cloned voice. And the images of the homes that you're going to see, they don't exist in the real world. It was all invented within a computer, even the music.
Right now, something incredible is happening at St. Andrew's Country Club. We're seeing the lowest inventory in years, with just 13 homes on the market. That's practically unheard of. What does this mean for you? If you've been thinking about selling, there's never been a better time. With so few homes available, sellers are in a prime position to attract serious buyers, and prices are holding strong across the board. Homes here are ranging from just under $2 million to over $10 million. With competition for homes this high and inventory so low, it's a seller's market. Let's talk about how we can position your home to maximize interest and get top dollar. Give me a call and we'll put together a winning strategy for you. Right now.
Unfortunately, it's a little bitmappy in here, but I think you get the point. That was not me. And that was not my voice, and that was not any real music, and that video of the buildings, of the houses, they don't exist. They simply don't exist. That was all created using AI. I share this with you as it gets better and better and better. I'm telling you, within a couple months, you will not see any more bitmappiness in it. You're going to just see what the producer of it wants you to see. And keep in mind this, I was a film major in school, so I'm a little bit better than some, but this is something that I'm not NBC. I'm not a big production company. This is me on my laptop with my iPhone with a few things. You will be able to utilize this stuff to be able to make better and better video. So I hope that kind of put a little wind in your sail, because everybody tends to like that. Daniel, what's coming up on Friday? You want to share with us? This is Daniel, everyone. He's like the greatest guy ever. He runs the show here secretly. You got to unmute.
Cold calling.
Oh, cold calling, turn cold leads into hot prospects. That's going to be Friday, September 13th. Friday the 13th, I'm doing something on cold calling. Doesn't that sound like fun? Okay. It's not for all of you. There's some of you that are going to like it, some of you that are not. I will take the pitches. We're going to put some mock situations together. We're going to show you how you could mock this and pretend to talk to someone using ChatGPT, so you could rehearse safely in your home, screw the whole thing up. No one will know anything. No one will ever bother you with it, and you're going to get better and better and better and better at it. So for those of you that are interested, it's going to be 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I like to give the Californians a break. Kenny, I hope you can make it. I can see your other colleagues are
Definitely
absent. Oh, and Lisa, I don't know if you're free. I'd love for you to come. You're in Arizona.
I might have a conflict. Will that one be recorded also? And
always recorded.
oh,
And
wait.
by the way, any of you can call me if something's missing. You know, the other thing I want to stress, Eitan's been very hard at work. Eitan's my business partner. He's in Lisbon. Eitan, can you just wave to everyone there? Okay, that's Eitan. He is the technical brains behind a lot of this stuff. So if it sucks, blame him. No. If you want to see some of the things that we're doing, we're actually working on an AI course that you're going to be able to view that, again, will use both AI images of me, real ones, fake ones. We're rewriting the scripts constantly, and we're putting that out and going to make it available. to all of you. So keep that in mind. Okay, wants, needs, and brags. This is now the time for people to talk about what they want, what they need, what they'd like to brag about. Anyone have anything? Big accomplishment? Kids graduated school already. Kids started school already. Okay, Paula, please.
We had 2 closings yesterday, which was great. My son went to one, I went to another. But here's the story that will never go into the book. I will never write.
Okay.
The lawyer for the seller, I was representing the buyer. The lawyer for the seller absconded with the down payment, $168,000.
The lawyer for the seller stole the money? Like
This is
I've
never heard of this in 40 years.
Like this is
The seller's lawyer stole the money, and not just theirs, other clients too.
Did he like disappear off the face of the earth?
He
or-
actually is in a mental institution, unfortunately for him, but I thought maybe he'd be in another non-extradited country, but he had some kind of breakdown and he stole their money. Can you imagine?
That really
Now what?
Wow. Yeah.
That's one for the books. I swear to God, I was
really
like,
is. It's always been theoretical until you said it here in the meeting. Look at Lisa's face. Look at how, my God, she's rubbing her chin. What?
the listing
Can I
broker,
say that?
the house was owned by his sister, the listing broker's sister. So he recommended this lawyer. He's devastated, done several deals with him. It was a total shock. And he said, how does one protect themselves from this? Well, when you have a lawyer who's a sole practitioner, that's one way it can easily happen. But because he called the law board and how do we get the money back? And they said, if you're in a large organization, a large law firm, there's more eyeballs on it. There's more checks and balances. I can't even believe this. Those poor people.
We don't use lawyers in Arizona, and it works just fine.
Yeah. California too. It's all like paralegal type of stuff.
Right. Well, you know what we call them in New York, deal killers. So yeah.
Carmen just said that
Wow.
same situation happened in 2009 with an attorney in Boca Raton, and he disappeared for it. I mean, look, it happens. These are just stories that I read about. I have not had anyone in my meetings of all these years that I've been doing, and we've got this meeting 6 times a month. No one's ever quite told me something that's so brazen, but it makes sense that he's in a mental institution. And
Unbelievable.
that really that sucks.
Yeah.
Hate to be a part of a deal like that. That's really kittens and unicorns. We need to get a better story here, but I'm not going to end it on a thief here. Who's got something better for me? Who's got, not that Paul, I adore you, I think it's great, but who's got like something, who hasn't spoken that's got a good one, something good that's happened this week? Got a deal, closed a deal, booked a client.
Hey,
got a positive diagnosis. You're no cancer. I mean, something. Go ahead, Randy. Tell everyone who you are and where you are.
this is Randy in Joplin, Missouri. I had a client coming in from Tennessee, buyer, over this past weekend. There was nothing on the MLS. We had seen everything, and they couldn't find anything. So I just put it out there. Who's got something coming? And so they came to town. We saw a house. This is something I don't want to ever do again, but it wasn't on the market yet. So we saw it with the sellers actually there. The seller was a bit eccentric, offered to throw his car in, which was a bright yellow show car, Camaro. Well, they took him up on it, and then the guy lost his mind. But long story short, we're under contract, fair value for the house. So my sellers came in, or my buyers came in from Tennessee, and went home happy to pack their stuff and move to Joplin. So all's well that ends well. But never look at a house that's not on the market if the sellers aren't willing to let you have some privacy.
Well, Randy, good for you. Good to hear you, and good to see everybody as well. Terry, you're still here. Do I have you for 3 more minutes, Terry? There's just one other thing that I want to share with everyone before we.
Edmund, I'll give you 5.
Okay, so here, guys, a lot of you have been talking about what's going on August 17th with the big changes of commission. I have been speaking with an attorney about getting an idea protected. We've got a trademark on it. Can I share with you something that I'm programming?
Please.
And I'm going to make it available to kind of lease, if you will, Well, so first of all, this is the code in case anyone's interested in being geeky. So this is all the code that actually goes into creating it. And I created a reverse MLS basically, where you could add a buyer. So let's say, or let's say you've got a pocket listing in Addison Reserve. You could, and you say that, or let's say you've got a buyer that's looking in Addison Reserve and they'll buy from 500,000 to let's say 2 million. You could now add that buyer to this database, and the broker's name is Edmund Bogen, and the email is edmund@bogenhomes.com. And I could leave a little note, also interested in deals outside in the same area. And we can now add that buyer, and that buyer was added to the database. Now we have Eitan, who's got a pocket listing in that community, and he wants to go to Addison Reserve, and his pocket listing is going to sell for 1.5, and now he could do a search, and lo and behold, here's Edmund Bogen who entered this. You don't see my client's name, you just see that it's me, you've got my contact info. This is just a prototype at this point. I wish I could make it bigger for you to see, but that's something that I'm actually working on. Question for you: have you seen anything like that at this point in your?
Yes.
Lisa, go ahead.
My previous Remax office had something similar.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's my
we currently have something very similar.
Okay, so the intellectual property attorneys have been saying this is going to be very difficult to patent. We need to come up with some other means, but I will tell you this: it's going to be prettier, it's going to be web enabled, and we'd like to kind of rent that out to you if you'd like to use it within your own office. So if you want to go there and have a shared file, that is something that's coming up. If you are interested in learning more about it, please do reach out to me, and that's my sales pitch for now. So that said, Terry, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. When I see Terry and saying that he's ready, just everyone keep in mind, we got the cold calling meeting on Friday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. That's 9 a.m. for my Californians. That said, it really is great seeing all of you today. It sure was great having you, and I look forward to seeing all of you Friday, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for another exciting episode of
Rain Nation.
Thank you. And FYI, there were no special effects in that one. So
There's a real voice.
There's a real voice. Thanks, guys. Good to see everybody.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Ed.
Have a good day.
Bye.